I'm sitting in my sunlit apartment, the skyline of Chicago stretching beyond the window like a reminder of everything I've built and everything I've survived. My fingers brush over the silk blouse I carefully chose this morning, the soft fabric a small comfort against the lingering ache of memory. It's quiet here, almost too quiet, except for the faint hum of the city below and the soft buzz of my phone vibrating on the marble countertop. I glance at it. Another notification. Another message from someone I barely know or used to know. My thumb hovers over the screen, reluctant, wary. My husband is gone. And yet, the ghosts of the life we shared linger in every corner, especially in the moments when the past tries to creep in, uninvited. The day he died, everything changed. His family, people I once thought would protect me, cast me out as though I'd been a stranger in his life. I remember the coldness, the whispers, the slammed doors. It's a scar I carry quietly beneath the polished surface of my current success. And now the message pulls me back. We need to talk. For words. That's all it takes to unearth a storm I thought I'd long buried. I take a deep breath, the aroma of coffee filling my senses, grounding me. I've grown since then. I've survived. I've learned that sometimes the people who abandon you are the ones who teach you how strong you really are. I swipe open the message, bracing myself. I remember that day as if it were yesterday, though my memory is sharpened by both pain and clarity. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and flowers. He was gone, my husband, my anchor, my unexpected love, and I was left holding nothing but his empty hand. The grief was suffocating, a weight that made every breath a battle. But the worst part wasn't the loss itself. It was them, his family, glaring at me with thinly veiled contempt. "You can't stay here," his mother said, her voice cold, precise, like she had been rehearsing it. Her eyes didn't meet mine. They darted around the room as if to mark the furniture as hers, now that I no longer belonged. His father simply nodded, silent, agreeing with a quiet cruelty that cut deeper than words. They didn't even try to hide their satisfaction at my displacement. I felt my hands trembling, my throat tight, the lump there that would not go away. I have nowhere else to go," I whispered, my voice breaking, hoping, foolishly, that the family I thought I had gained through marriage might extend a shred of compassion. "Then you'll figure it out," she said, her words like ice sliding down my spine. "We're done with this. Take your things." I left the house with a suitcase and a lifetime of shattered expectations, the door closing behind me with a sound that seemed to echo forever. On the street, the late afternoon sun felt harsh against my skin, indifferent to my suffering. Every step I took away from their mansion was a step into a world I had never truly known, a world where I was utterly, terrifyingly alone. And yet, there was one thing he had left me, tucked away before the end, something that seemed small at first, but carried immense potential, a leather-bound journal, a key to a safety deposit box, and a letter with words that would eventually light a fire under my despair. He had believed in me when no one else did, and in that moment of isolation, that tiny act of trust became my lifeline. I sat on a nearby bench, clutching the journal to my chest, its edges worn and familiar, his handwriting looping lovingly across the pages. I remembered the advice my grandmother had once given me when I faced life's cruelties. "The world will try to break you. Break it back in return, but do it with your own hands, your own mind, and your own heart." And for the first time since his death, I felt a spark, not hope, not relief, but a quiet, resolute fire. I would survive. I would rise. And they would never see me coming. I started small. At first, it was just the journal and the safety deposit key he had left me, my husband's final gift, a quiet reminder that he still believed in me even when his family didn't. Inside the box was more than money. It was opportunity, a foothold I could use to rebuild my life. I remember holding that envelope in my trembling hands, the weight of responsibility heavier than the grief that had been my constant companion. I rented a tiny studio apartment in downtown Chicago, the walls bare, the floors cold. But it was mine. I could breathe here without judgment, without whispers of, "You don't belong." Nights were the hardest. I would pore over the journal, scribble ideas, make lists, and research until the hours slipped past me. My laptop became my constant companion, and slowly, I began to see a path where once there had only been darkness. That path introduced me to Margaret, a seasoned entrepreneur in her late 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She saw potential where others would have seen desperation. "You have fire," she told me the first time we met. "You need to channel it. The world doesn't owe you anything, but it will pay attention if you make them." Under her guidance, I learned the hard truths of business. I struggled with self-doubt, watched my early ideas fail, and faced the sneers of people who assumed I was just another woman trying to survive. I remember the nights I cried alone in that studio, my hair a mess, my silk pajamas torn from restless pacing, wondering if I had the strength to keep going. But each small win, a contract signed, a client impressed, a sale finalized, added a brick to the foundation of the life I was building. I became careful with what I shared publicly. Social media showed a modest, quiet version of my life, a new dress, a coffee shop brunch, a sunset. No one saw the countless hours of toil, the sleepless nights, or the meticulous planning that transformed a small seed into a thriving consulting firm. I learned to protect myself, to hide my success from those who had once cast me out. Years passed, and the small studio became a chic apartment. The modest consultancy became a recognized firm in the city. The city skyline I once watched from the bench after that first walk away from his family now belonged to me. My office overlooked it all, filled with expensive art I loved, personal touches that spoke of my journey, and the quiet power of someone who had clawed her way back from the edge. Every day, I remembered the journal and the letter he left me. They weren't just instructions. They were faith in me, a final weapon against despair and injustice. I had used it wisely, and with each success, I realized that the real victory wasn't proving them wrong. It was proving to myself that I could rise, unshaken, unbroken, unstoppable. It was a crisp Friday morning when they arrived, his family. I had received a curt message from his mother. "We need to meet. It's time to talk." My stomach twisted, a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. I hadn't expected this. Perhaps they assumed I was still struggling, still fragile. Perhaps they believed I was the same woman who had walked out of their lives years ago. The doorman buzzed them in, and I waited in my office, seated behind a sleek mahogany desk, my hands clasped. The walls behind me were adorned with abstract art I had purchased during my travels, and a large window framed the Chicago skyline, sunlight glinting off the glass buildings. The office smelled faintly of sandalwood and coffee, a subtle signature of my personal space. When they walked in, the shock was immediate. His mother froze, lips parted, her eyes scanning the room in disbelief. His father's jaw tightened, a muscle working as he took in the modern furnishings, the polished shelves lined with awards, the framed photographs of projects I had led. My brother-in-law stepped forward, attempting casual conversation, but his eyes betrayed his astonishment. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers drumming lightly against the desk. I let them take it all in. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken words. Then I spoke, calm and measured, letting the weight of my voice land in the room. "I'm guessing you expected someone very different," I said, my gaze steady. "Someone weak, overwhelmed, struggling to survive. But the woman you see before you is not that person." His mother's lips trembled. We didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I interrupted softly. "The moment he died, you decided I wasn't worthy of your care, your respect, or your home. You cast me out. You assumed I would fail." I reached into a drawer and retrieved the leather-bound journal he had left me, placing it carefully on the desk. "This," I said, tapping it, "and the plans he entrusted me with are what allowed me to build this life. Your assumptions, your rejection, they were not my defeat. They were my opportunity." I opened the journal to a page marked with his handwriting, showing detailed plans, strategic investments, and a roadmap to financial independence. He believed in me. I took that belief, and I turned it into reality. They stared, silent. His mother's hands shook as she gripped her purse. His father's face was pale, lines of guilt etched deep. The younger ones, the ones who had sneered at me years ago, looked like children caught in a lesson far beyond their years. I own my own company now, I continued, letting the words settle. I'm financially independent, respected in my field, and no longer in anyone's shadow. Everything you doubted me capable of, I have surpassed it. Every door you slammed in my face, every insult, every moment you wished me failure, I have turned into strength. His mother's eyes welled up. We didn't realize, she whispered. I held up a hand, a mixture of patience and firmness. You chose not to realize. But now you see. I am not asking for your approval. I am simply showing you the truth. The life you try to take from me is mine, in every way. For the first time in years, I saw something shift in them. Shame, disbelief, awe, all layered together. And for me, it was not about revenge. It was about proving that the final weapon my husband left me had worked exactly as he intended. Volumes, shock, guilt, disbelief. But now it was my turn to set the terms. I wasn't here to punish them, not exactly. I was here to reclaim my power, to define the boundaries I should have had all along. I'll be clear, I said, my voice steady, yet carrying a weight they could not ignore. I have what I need now. I'm thriving. I am safe. But if you want to be part of my life again, there are conditions. His mother swallowed hard, eyes brimming with tears. Conditions? Yes, I said. Each of you must confront your past actions. No excuses, no hiding behind tradition or grief. You will treat people with respect, and you will make an effort to change the habits that drove you to reject me. You will pursue something meaningful, your own growth, rather than trying to control mine. I paused, letting my words settle like stones in a still pond. For example, if you're going to try to be in my life, you will attend therapy or counseling. You will repair your relationships where you've been toxic. You will actively seek to understand, rather than judge. And you will stop speaking of me as if I am the one who failed when, in fact, you failed me first. His father's head lowered, a silent acknowledgement of past mistakes. His brother shifted uneasily. His mother's lips trembled as if she were tasting the bitter truth for the first time. I am not cruel, I continued, letting the warmth of my voice mix with firmness. I am compassionate. I care about family, about connection, about healing. But I will not compromise my boundaries. I will not allow the past to repeat itself. The weapon my husband left me was not vengeance. It was power, the power to choose who belongs in my life and under what circumstances. Their expressions changed as they listened. Some shock remained, but slowly, a glimmer of understanding began to emerge. I could see it in his mother's eyes, the recognition that she had been given a chance to change, not just for me, but for herself. I could see it in his father, the quiet humility that comes with owning mistakes. Even my brother-in-law, who had mocked me years ago, seemed to grasp that he had a choice, continue in his arrogance or grow. I smiled, the first true smile of resolution in years. If you choose to accept these conditions, we can try again. But if you refuse, I will continue my life without bitterness, without resentment, and without you. And I will continue to thrive. I reached for the journal again, running my fingers over the worn leather cover. The words my husband had left me were not just plans for success. They were a roadmap for justice tempered with integrity. I realized, in that moment, that my true power wasn't money or accolades. It was the ability to set boundaries, to protect myself, and to demand accountability without losing compassion. They nodded, slowly, as if hearing the truth for the first time. And for the first time in years, I felt the scales balance. I had been powerless once. Now, I was not just surviving, I was in command of my own life, and anyone who wanted to be a part of it would have to meet me on my terms. Dismissive, started showing glimpses of change. His mother attended therapy and slowly learned to express empathy instead of judgment. His father, quiet and thoughtful, began volunteering in the community, seeking purpose beyond appearances. Even my brother-in-law approached me one afternoon, awkward and sincere, admitting his past mistakes and asking for guidance on how to grow. I watched these transformations with a mixture of surprise and quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about control or proving dominance anymore. It was about witnessing accountability, seeing people confront their flaws and take responsibility. And as they changed, I felt lighter, the weight of old resentment lifting, leaving space for gratitude and peace. One evening, I sat at my desk, the city lights twinkling below, and opened the leather-bound journal once more. The pages smelled faintly of ink and memory, a tactile reminder of the man who had believed in me when no one else did. I traced his handwriting, remembering his words, "The world will test you, but you have the strength to shape it." I smiled, realizing that this final weapon he left me was never about revenge or proving a point to anyone else. It was about empowerment, about giving me the tools to survive, grow, and reclaim my life with dignity and courage. It was about turning loss into resilience, grief into purpose, and rejection into triumph. Looking out at the skyline, I felt a profound sense of closure. I had endured the worst, navigated betrayal and loss, and emerged stronger, wiser, and independent. My relationships now were grounded in mutual respect, honesty, and love, not obligation or fear. And in that quiet, reflective moment, I whispered to myself, a final voiceover of my journey. I survived, I thrived, and I will never let anyone else write my story, but I will continue to write it with courage, grace, and the power that is entirely my own. The journal sat beside me, a symbol of love, faith, and the unstoppable force of a woman who refused to be diminished. And for the first time in years, I felt wholly, undeniably free.